we go. Where did it just go?
I see it.
Hold on. It's spinning. It says I'm live. Let's see if we are live. We are live. Lee, we are live. 1 second. I'm going to share from the Pillars page. So we are sharing. Let's wait for some people to tune in. As our friends join us, we are live in the Pillars of Peace group for our first episode of Tell Your Story, August 6th.
Wow. Hard to believe it's August 6th.
Can you believe it?
No.
I do not believe it. We're sharing. Let's wait for some people to tune in. Oh, is that yours? You're repeating or mine? We are live in the Pillars of Peace group for our first episode of Tell Your Story.
All right, hold on. Not quite sure how to deal with that. There's a delay.
Yep, volume. Just have to turn the volume down.
On the Facebook.
Yep.
Got it.
But I can still hear you.
I just turned the volume off on the Facebook.
Yep, and I'm just going to watch the live stream. Oh, yep, I did the same thing. Just have to turn the volume down on the Facebook. Hold on. We're getting ready, everybody, waiting for everybody to tune in on our Facebook Live. We have some viewers tuning in. And I'm going to be watching the comments in the group where we are in Pillars of Peace. So we have over 570 members in our Pillars of Peace group now. And I am hoping that folks will tune in with us tonight and we can share our story, our first episode of Tell Your Story. Let's get some, hold 1 second. Okay.
I'm trying to share to my group and I don't see it showing up on my group, so.
Okay. Well, so you're in Pillars
Oh,
of Peace.
there it is.
You got it?
Yep.
You good? All right.
Sorry. I know we're trying to get our tech coordinated here.
That's okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. We have like 8 people tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. If you are on the live stream with us, if you can just comment and just say hi, let us know where you're from and if it is storming there right now, because some people are telling me that it is storming in their area. So just comment below and just let us know where you're tuning in from. And as soon as I go to the comments, see, that's where I can't see. So Lee, can you see the comments in the Pillars of Peace group on Facebook on your other screen?
I can.
Okay, so you'll be able to monitor that because for some reason when I do it on my iPad, I cannot see the comments. And I don't know why that is. But, all right, we're going to get started. Do we have anybody saying where they're from or if they're storming?
I don't see anything happening.
Okay.
Just yet.
All right. Some people may not know how to comment. So we're going to get started. So tonight is the first episode of Tell Your Story. And I had put up a post a few weeks ago and asked if anyone would be interested in sharing their story of overcoming challenges and what they have done to find peace, inner peace, because Pillars of Peace is a group within Pillars of Light and Love, which is a charity that I founded 5 years ago. And pillars are the people, the volunteers, the people who offer to work with me to help spread love and kindness and support. And they stand strong, so that's why they're called pillars. And in the beginning of June, when there was so much frustration with this COVID virus, and then the unrest began with the rioting and then the talks of racism, we did a live stream in this group. I created Pillars of Peace, and we did one of our first live streams was on racism, understanding racism, and that is still recorded here in the group, and you can feel free to watch that at any time. But as I created Pillars of Peace, if you look in the description, you'll see that it is about peace within yourself and how, no matter what is happening in the world, how can you find peace? So a lot of the speakers that will be lined up and coming forward have had challenges in their life, and they have found how to overcome them and find that peace. And no one's story, I can tell you, is easy, but it is possible. And I want to give that hope to other people in Pillars of Peace for that reason. So tonight's guest is a new friend of mine, Lee, is here. And Lee wears many hats, as I do. And her history is that, I'm on my wrong page here, she has been a wellness coach, a functional nutrition, how do you say that?
Functional nutritional therapy practitioner. Yes, that's a mouthful.
That's a lot of it. And she's also been in recovery. She has been sober now for 8.5 years. So first of all, congratulations to you for that and for taking your power back. And as I said, I know that's not easy, and you're going to be sharing your story there. But before we get there, I want to talk just a little bit about the frustration that a lot of us are living in, because January, we started the year 2020, cool year, and when I was doing business plans, I was saying with people like, 2020, what's your clear vision for 2020? Let's use the 2020. And everybody had their plans, and we mapped out what we were going to do in our lives, and people made New Year's resolutions, and I like to call them intentions for your life. And then boom, 10 weeks into the year, our lives were turned into uncertainty. They were filled with fear. They were filled with unknowns. And we had a lot of our freedoms taken away, it seemed like in a heartbeat. And we had to adapt. We had to become flexible. And I say we had to learn how to pivot. But no sooner will we pivot one way and we think we got something down, we would get more information. We have to go another way. We lost a lot of freedoms, and people are frustrated. So let's talk first about the frustration that people are feeling. Anybody out there frustrated? Lots of frustration going on. Lee, let's talk about that and the things that people have had to adapt to.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We've had to pivot and turn and regroup, and we've had to do it multiple times. I mean, we're not talking about a couple of weeks here. We're talking about months and months, and it's frustrating and it's stressful. And a lot of people out there are in their homes with everyone in the family, with no outlet, with nobody leaving to go to work, nobody traveling, nobody going to school. So everyone's on top of each other, and I think it's hard for people, and I think some people handle it better than others, possibly. But I think we're going to see, once this is all over, I think we're going to see some long-term ramifications from the stress and frustration that we've all been through. And I think it's just, it's something that nobody really knows how to manage. The truth is there's no secret to this. It's, we're learning as we go.
We're exactly learning as we go. And so prior to COVID, through Pillars of Light and Love, we have a lot of support groups. We have a lot of programs for teens. We have programs for children. We have an empowerment program that we're writing for schools, and we've kind of shifted that whole thing to get it online. And we're in the middle of writing that. But what I had this, unrealistic goal, because I was seeing everything that was going on in the world, and I said, people are disconnected from one another. People are disconnected. Parents are disconnected from their children. Children are disconnected from themselves. They're disconnected from their families. There are people who are disconnected spiritually. Like, there was so much disconnection going on. And I was like, how do we fix this? What do we do? I don't know what to do. And then boom, COVID hits. And then you see, with all the tragedies, right, we saw some beautiful things happening where families were walking together, doing things together. Siblings were playing together when they never played together before. We saw people have to be forced to reconnect. And a lot of people, I think, went within. I think a lot of people have had a lot of growth through it all. They've learned a lot of things about themselves. They've learned how to be resilient. But then we still have the people who have depression, anxiety, mental illness, addiction. We know that suicide calls to the hotline are up 600%.
Yeah.
600%. Liquor sales are up tremendously. People who drank are drinking more. People who may not have drank before are drinking now. And these skills that people have learned, some of them have learned healthy coping skills, some of them had the tools, but a lot of people haven't. And I'm really concerned about that. And that's why tonight's Tell Your Story is focused on how can we get to healthy coping skills. So, I mean, did you find that there were some good things that you saw coming out of this in addition to the not so good?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. It's a tragic situation. I mean, we've people have lost family members, people have lost jobs. There's a lot of tragedy that is coming about as a result of this coronavirus situation, and yet at the same time, there are so many silver linings for a lot of people also. So we've got more connection. We're all feeling a little more comfortable with technology. So you and I are able to have this conversation where we may not have necessarily done this before. Families are connecting on Zoom and other areas. People are taking classes. There are so many silver linings. Just like with any situation, I think it's got challenges, but it's also got a lot of benefits and a lot of positive that we're seeing. And a big part of this is, how are we showing up? How are we acknowledging with gratitude the things that are happening well? And then how are we showing up for the people that are really suffering? Because while a lot of people are taking walks and they are doing fun things together, there are a lot of people that are just extremely isolated now. And so we need to, as a society, as a group, as a community here, pillars of peace, we need to make sure that we're showing up for people that are feeling isolated and feeling left out and possibly feeling a whole lot of pain because it's serious.
True. And I think that there are a lot of adults who, as we said, didn't have strong coping skills before. For example, there are a lot of parents who are tremendously stressed because now they're finding out their children are not going to go back to school at least for a month or a couple months, and now they have to go back into the homeschooling again, which they thought was over. And so the parents are stressed, and parents have to understand that their behavior that they model is what the children are going to pick up. So if the parents don't adapt and be flexible and pivot and have an I got this attitude, what's that going to do to the kids?
Yeah, I think it's going to have a serious impact. I mean, as children look to their parents to see primarily how to feel a lot of times. So if the parents are stressed out and yelling and screaming and throwing things, that's going to, seriously impact the anxiety level of the children. So like I said, this is a learn as we go kind of a thing. What I've seen with a lot of the people that I work with throughout this process is that people have good days and bad days. People have all kinds of energy to do a lot of fun things, and then they'll have days and days on end where they can't get off the couch and they're Netflix binging the whole time. So I think we need to offer ourselves a lot of grace and, essentially know that we are all doing the best we can, but we also need to get creative. We need to step outside of the box. We need to reach out for support within our community. Parents, this whole kids not going to school, and now we just learned that some kids aren't even going to be able to play sports in some states. So, it's back to square one, and it's devastating for people. So, we need to be a community and reach out and support people that need help. We need to volunteer to maybe take care of kids so moms and dads can have a couple of hours to themselves. Reach out to homeschooling groups. Think about group outside activities that you can do. I don't know. It's just be creative.
You gotta keep
minded.
You got to keep, you got to go this way and go to it's definitely pivot. Like, here we are. Okay, now we have to do this now. But it's so important. So for all the adults out there, especially those who are parents, I would say, take a deep breath and talk to the kids and say, hey, what do you think we could do? And maybe they'll come up with, hey, how about if we do a neighborhood soccer team? How about if we, do something, and get together with a group of friends and we just go to a field and do it and find ways to do things. Don't stay in that tight isolation. Like, the kids have got to be social. I mean, they've got to get out there. And so it's just about being flexible and doing things differently. And I always say that, in life we learn lessons, and every person that we meet is either a blessing or a lesson. And sometimes the most frustrating things are teaching you important lessons in life, like tolerance, forgiveness, acceptance, all of those big, big lessons. And the biggest one right now that everybody is being forced to learn, if they can, and if their coping skills are healthy, and we're going to talk about unhealthy ones, but is resilience. And that is the biggest lesson that before COVID, I found most difficult to teach to teenagers in our programs. They didn't have the skills to bounce back. It was, woe is me, I'm the only one, I can't get out of this. And now we have COVID, and a lot of people are feeling that a hundredfold. Nothing's going to get better. It's a tough time. But if we look at it as, what lessons am I learning? And what I think is that the kids today who are, the 5-year-olds to the 18-year-olds, because of everything they have to learn, they're going to learn a lesson that some adults never learn, and that's resilience. Like, how did we get through this? Do you
Yeah.
think that's a big
I agree 100%. I mean, it's only through challenges that we learn resilience. You can't learn resilience when everything's going great all the time. I think it's important that we all understand that we are going to have good days and bad days. This has been a marathon, and marathons are exhausting. So we need to pay attention to self-care. We need to stop, take a break. It's okay to cry. It's okay to just curl up in a ball every now and then and do nothing. But then we need to get back up, get back on the horse, and figure out what we're going to do next. I mean, one of the things we know that helps us in times of stress is helping others. So, one way that we can help our kids is to encourage them to think of ideas that they can help out in the community or help other kids that might be lonely. There are kids in all of the classes, who aren't necessarily the outgoing kids that are plugged in, and those kids need to be checked on. And so that's something that we can encourage kids to do, is check on those kids that were outliers in school, and make sure that they're okay, and see if there's anything you can drop off. When we get outside of ourselves, I think it tends to connect us to the world around us. It connects us to other people, and it makes us feel better. And so, what I've seen a lot of, all over Facebook, all over the various Facebook groups, is people stepping up to help out in the community and help people that they wouldn't, in ways that they wouldn't normally do. And that's a huge blessing here. It's a huge blessing here. But for those people that are exhausted and they don't know what else to do, and they're at their wits' end, what I know is that this too shall pass. This will pass. We will get through this.
And people want to know when. They're like, when? We don't know when, but
we don't
what
know.
we do know is it's temporary. And you think about, dial us back to March, unknown. How much more even we know about the virus now, and how to treat it, and that less people are dying from it. Like, what we don't have is, like, we don't have clarity yet. We have to wait for this study, we have to wait for that study. We don't have clarity, but we have so much more than we did, and we're so much further past it. But for those of you who are worriers, I want to just share this with you. I teach a class on how to live a worry-free life, but I came up with something else the other day, because during COVID, I'm starting like, oh my gosh, should I worry about this or worry about that? And I thought, you know what, I got to get rid of that word, worry. So now I'm wondering about that, because it gives it a whole, it takes it away, the negative. Oh my God, I'm so worried. And I hear people say, and they message me, I'm worried to death about this. And I'm like, stop, don't say worried to death. Like, don't even put that out there, because your thoughts, your self-talk has to switch up a little bit. So for those of you who are worriers, I would encourage you to use the word, I'm wondering. I'm wondering what's going to happen about that. I'm wondering what tomorrow is going to bring. I'm wondering, instead of worry. Just a little bit of a word flip there. So,
and Kathy, you teach a lot of different classes, and one of the classes that that I've been to is your class on stress. And I remember, and of course this is a key point for a lot of us, is stay focused on the present. Be where your feet are. In the present moment, we don't need to worry. Everything's okay. We need to trust that we're going to have the tools that we need to get through whatever happens down the road, whether it's job loss, whether it's illness, whatever it is, we're going to have the tools that we need. And if it becomes a crisis in this moment, there's somebody to call. And it's important that we reach out, pick up the phone and call, whether we're in an abusive situation where we need help, regardless of the situation. You know, it's important to stay present, stay focused. Everything's fine right now. And if it becomes a crisis, reach out and get help.
Okay, so here's we're going to go into tell your story. You weren't always like that, Lee, were you?
Nope, I wasn't always like that.
You weren't
Um,
you weren't always like that. So let's talk about how your life was 8.5 years ago, and how you were able to become peaceful inside now. And it didn't take you a whole 8.5 years to do that, I'm sure. But what is the life of a person who is dependent on alcohol? What does it look like?
yeah, so you know, you said it didn't take 8.5 years. It's a lifelong process. So yes, I found peace fairly quickly out of the gate, but it continues to grow. You know, I continue to evolve. I mean, you never arrive anywhere in life, regardless of whether you've had an addiction that you've had to deal with or not. What my life looked like before was, you know, I was always an anxious person starting as a kid, just very anxious, uncomfortable in my own skin. I didn't really feel like I belonged. For a lot of reasons, I felt outside of the circle. We lived overseas. We moved around a lot. I didn't always speak the language. I was the new kid in school, and you know there were issues in the household. So I just felt very unsafe and uncomfortable in my own skin. And at an early age, in my teen years, I discovered alcohol and other substances. And I found the solution to that problem. When I drank alcohol, I felt better. I felt like I belonged, I felt connected, and I felt at peace on the inside. And it worked for a long, long time. I mean, into my adult years, I used alcohol as a social lubricant, if you will. And it, you know, and I thrived. I mean, I think I always drank alcoholically, and that it would get away from me. You know, I never knew exactly what was going to happen, but for the most part, for a long, long time, I was able to manage without too much drama. But about 9.5 years ago, I would say, I made a serious effort to quit drinking and found that I was unable to do so. And so I had gone through a divorce. My son got his real estate license. Nobody was really watching me. I had, you know, free access to alcohol whenever I wanted it. And I was drinking, you know, every single day. And I was drinking for effect. I was drinking to get drunk. I really wanted to block out all the anxiety and all the pain that was going on in my life, all the stress and anxiety of being a single mom and having gone through a divorce. And, you know, there are so many reasons. But the reason that I became an alcoholic over the years is just because I'm an alcoholic. I mean, a lot of people can drink because of stress and not necessarily become an alcoholic, but I am an alcoholic, and it became a problem. I drank every single day, often to the point of blackout, which means that I don't remember, you know, what happened the night before. I would forget things that people said to me. Specifically, my son would ask me for things and I would forget. I was taking Xanax around the clock to settle my nerves in the morning. And I've come to since find out that, you know, I had debilitating hangovers, and I used Xanax to help me feel better from that. And then I had anxiety during the day because I wasn't getting things done. I wasn't living up to my potential. I was living this kind of secret life. Nobody really knew what was happening with me. So it was creating a lot of anxiety. And then I was taking Xanax at night, because when you drink too much at night, you don't sleep well. You might sleep well for a few hours. You wake up in the middle of the night, and I was taking it. So I was taking Xanax around the clock, and I was drinking pretty much every single night. And I just got to a point where something had to change.
How did you know? How did you know that something had to change?
Well, interestingly enough, for years, I think I got away with it. In other words, nobody really saw how bad it was. But that last year, the wheels started coming off. It started what I call getting away from me, where people started seeing evidence of me drinking too much. And my son in particular. So I was a single mom of a teenage son, and he started noticing, started making comments. We would have fights about it. He was pretty disgusted with me, to be honest. I was seeing somebody at the time who was also making some comments. So I really didn't get it, to be truthful. What I did was I pre-planned a 30-day break, a cleanse, if you will. In fact, I think I called it that. I said, I'm going to do a 30-day cleanse. I planned it in October for January. I couldn't even do the cleanse right away. I had to wait months out. And I planned a 30-day cleanse, honestly, just to get everyone to get off my back. I thought I'll just take a little break. I will get it out of my system. I will get to a point where I can manage it better, where I won't necessarily need to drink every night, and maybe I won't need to drink as much, and I'll just control it. And so that's what I did. I planned that for January 1, 2012. And
then what happened?
well, what happened was about 4 or 5 days into that, it was hard. In retrospect, I should have gone to rehab. I should have detoxed and should have gone to rehab. So I fought through that on my own. I didn't have anyone to turn to. I thought at the time, I just thought I was doing a 30-day cleanse. I really didn't need to go anywhere, but I was having a hard time. But I was already planning my drinking for when the 30 days would be up. So I was talking to the guy I was seeing, and I said, you know, when this 30 days is up, I'm only going to drink when we go out to eat, or I'm only going to drink, you know, if on a special occasion or something. And he sat me down and had a very loving and honest conversation with me. And he said, you know, I'd like to talk to you about what I've observed about your drinking over the past year. And all the stuff that I thought I was hiding and getting away with, I wasn't. And he pointed out time after time after time that my drinking either affected him or, you know, wasn't normal, or, you know, just all the times that I thought nobody saw or nobody noticed. And the gig was up, basically. You know, I thought I was getting away with something. I really didn't realize it was a problem. But when he confronted me lovingly, and that's a key word there, because if he had yelled at me or, you know, tried to tell me what to do, I don't know that I could have heard it, but he said it lovingly. And it was just a moment of surrender for me. I just said, you're right. This is horrible. And, you know, I was living a double life. I was pretending to be a successful, you know, engaged, plugged in employee, mother, friend, and all that. And I really wasn't. On the inside, it was a very, very dark place. And I felt very alone, very isolated. I saw other people drinking and having fun and enjoying themselves. And, you know, the next day they would show up on meetings and they'd be great. And I was suffering because the hangovers that I had were unbearable. And so I'm thinking, you know, everyone else is normal and I'm not. Even when I was out with people, everyone was having fun, and on the inside, I was just dying. I just wanted to get home. I really didn't want to be out with everybody. I wanted to get home and drink the way I wanted to drink.
To drink it away. And it's so interesting because exactly what you're describing, I've had conversations with people with depression and anxiety, and they same thing. I may look good on the inside, but I on the outside, but what's going on in here, you have no idea. And so many people, I call that suffering in silence. So many people are suffering in silence, and they're the people I want to help. You know, they're the people.
Well, yeah, and they need help. And the problem is, first of all, there are so many women, especially, but men and women, you know, suffering in silence. And, you know, you think, well, it's not really that big of a deal. It's not really that big of a problem, or, you know, we've talked about this before, Kathy, it's the only coping mechanism I had. So if I admit that I have a problem, you're going to take away the only coping mechanism I have. And then I'm going to be left with a big ball of anxiety and stress and not know anything, you know, not know what to do with it. I mean, many of us that come to this place of surrender really have no idea that there is another way to do life. We really think that we can't live with it and we can't live without it. You're literally between a rock and a hard place. And suicide for me was a very viable option. I had a child who was about to turn 18. The day I got sober, he turned 20. He turned 18 29 days after I got sober. If it wasn't for that child, I suspect that I wouldn't be here today. It's because of him that I didn't take that drastic route. And you know, I was thinking about how can I end my life without him knowing I ended my life? Because if I can figure out, I don't want to leave that legacy for him. Now, the thing about alcoholism is that, what at one time is a bar that we won't go below, very quickly becomes a bar that will very easily go below. So I suspect it was just a matter of time before him knowing that I had ended my own life wouldn't have been enough to deter me. And the insanity of that thought is that that kid would have been okay if I died from some natural cause, but not okay if I ended my own life. I mean, he needs his mom. He's 26 years old today. He still needs his mom. So,
And we say
um,
in our suicide support groups, you know, suicide is transferring one person's pain onto the people left behind. And if people knew that, the pain that they were going to cause the people left, and that's what you were thinking. You were like, I can't do
I
that to
can't
him.
cause, yeah, I
So
can't. And, but it rapidly gets to a point where you're in so much pain that you really don't see another option. And I think your mind plays tricks on you too. And you think, they'd be better off without me.
yep, yep.
And, I'm just grateful to be here today because, life is wonderful today. I mean, the message that I want to make sure I get across here is that no matter how bad it is, there is so much on the other side of recovery. I mean, life is better than I ever thought it would ever be. And, if I had mapped out my life, if you had said, Lee, I want you to design your perfect life. If I had done that, I would have grossly undersold myself. I mean, my life is just so much better than I could have ever imagined. And it's gone in directions that I hadn't even thought of. The problem is when you're in the midst of addiction and alcohol, or addiction of drugs or alcohol, you don't know there is a better life out there. There's no context. All you know is what you know.
Same thing.
And
Same thing for depression. Same thing for depression, and anxiety. Like the things you're saying, I'm like, this is resonant of a lot of other things in the work that we've been doing at Pillars of Light and Love. It's the same thing. Like we can't. It's hard to get people to know that you're not the only one, and life can be better. And like, no, it can't. No, no. And so how did you get to that? How did you get to that place of trying, of being? I know you said that you were lovingly told that hey, this is not working for me, it's not working for you, you need to get help. How did you get the help? You didn't do it alone. Like, how did you do it?
no, yeah, it's a great question. So there was a friend of mine that had entered into 12-step recovery a few years before. I knew about it, but she did not know I knew. So she was very anonymous in that whole process. And she used to be one of my drinking buddies. And all of a sudden she disappeared. And so I knew she was in recovery. And I picked up the phone and called her. And I just said, I need help. And after she got over the shock of me knowing that she was in recovery, she offered to meet me at a 12-step recovery meeting. And I did that on a Saturday at 10 a.m. And it was day 7 of my sobriety. So it was a Saturday morning. I met her at 10 a.m., which was honestly quite impressive because I hadn't been up and out and dressed at 10 a.m. on a Saturday in a long, long time. And I went to my first meeting, and the feeling that came over me was, I am home. I'm finally somewhere where people understand me. I cried the entire time. I sat in the front row, which was halfway through the meeting. I thought my worst mistake because I thought, oh my gosh, they can all see me. They all know me. And I was very visible at that point in my community. So I was worried about people recognizing me. But then I realized anyone else in the meeting is there for the same reason I am. So it's okay. But I started following their suggestions, and, I participated in 12-step recovery. And quitting drinking was just a very small piece of what recovery is all about. And really what recovery is all about is learning how to deal with life on life's terms. It's learning how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So a lot of us are uncomfortable. A lot of us have anxiety, but we can learn to get comfortable with that. And we can learn to not feel so greatly impacted by anxiety and stress and issues. We have a line in our program that says, we can match calamity with serenity. So you can still, I live in a way today where I feel serenity even in the midst of all this drama. And some days I have bad days. I'm not going to lie. I'm not floating off the air in the lotus position,
Mm.
I have bad days. I shared with you this morning. I'm very disappointed. I wanted to fly down to Alabama to see my son, and there's been a COVID. Um, he's been in touch with somebody with COVID, and so I had to cancel the trip. I was very disappointed and a little bit depressed, but I have tools now. I know how to move on. You and I had a love. I think you got me right in the middle of feeling a little bit upset about it, and then we had a conversation, and I felt reinvigorated and ready to go and do this. So, this program, the program that I participate in, teaches tools, and so do most 12-step recovery groups. And by the way, there are 12-step recovery groups for pretty much any problem anyone has. There are 12-step recovery groups for the families of people who have alcoholism. There are 12-step recovery groups for addicts. There are 12-step recovery groups, I believe, for mental illness and other issues, shopping, gambling, sex, love, all kinds of addictions.
And there's
And
many.
addiction
And
is
there's
simply,
many.
there are many, and really addiction is just something we do to fill the hole in the soul. We're uncomfortable in our own skin. We don't know how to live life on life's terms, and we start grabbing for things to feel better. And next thing you know, we find something that makes us feel great, and we just do it more and more and more. And the problem with that hole in the soul is it's bottomless. There's not enough shopping to actually feel better for long. And the same thing is true of alcoholism. And alcoholism is a deadly disease. People die from it all the time. They die from the effect of alcohol in their body, but they die from other things like heart disease and car accidents and homicides and suicides. And it's a very, very deadly disease. So we do take it very seriously. But the program of recovery really is about learning how to live life on life's terms, finding joy, finding peace, finding serenity, finding spiritual connection with others, with the world, with whatever higher power somebody might have.
That's one thing that I know that some people who I've had conversations with who have drinking problems have said, no, the 12-step thing's not for me. I hear it's religious. I don't want to, I don't, that's not my cup of tea. What do you say to that for people who give that objection to the program?
Yeah, 12-step recovery is, I think we talked earlier, to say there's a spiritual aspect to 12-step recovery is like saying there's a wet aspect to the ocean. So 12-step recovery is absolutely a spiritual program of recovery. However, there is no religion attached to it. So it's about finding something to lean on and rely on and flow with besides yourself. So left to my own devices, I drink to blackout every night. Left to my own devices, I take Xanax around the clock. Left to my own devices, I sleep on the couch until 10 minutes before my conference call and then try to wing my way through it. I needed to find something else to attach to start to flow with, other than relying on self-reliance doesn't work for me. And self-reliance really doesn't work for any addict. So there's no, they do use the G word sometimes, but there are a lot of agnostics, there are a lot of atheists in 12-step recovery. There are a lot of people that believe in Judaism, or they're Muslim, or they're, or they're nature folks, or they're Taoist. I mean, you can be whatever you want to be, or you don't have to be anything. It's just about getting outside yourself. A lot of people use just the power of the group. I'm going to turn myself over to the power of the recovery program and
And the
just do what
people
I'm told for once.
and the people you can lean on. And I imagine it's the same. So at Pillars of Light and Love, we have a lot of support groups. We have support groups, for parents who've lost children to suicide. We have support groups that I have for, women who've lost their mothers, because there's a very special connection there. We have various support groups, and we have teen talk and we have tween talk. And the thing that is common among all the groups is that feeling of being with people who get you and they know exactly what you feel like because you're an alcoholic or because you've lost your mother. Like, people can say, oh, you lost your mom. Oh, I'm so sorry you lost your mom. And that's what I would say. But until I lost my own mom, I didn't really understand. I lost my dad a year later. I didn't really understand. Now, when somebody loses, I can just say, I understand. I understand that heavy veil that you feel like that's over you. I understand that you like peek out at the world and say, yeah, okay, it's out there, but I got to stay in here. Like, you get it. So to be with people who get you, especially with the kids and the teens that we work with, they think that they're the only ones who have parents who don't listen to them. They think they're the only ones who, are having trouble in school. They think they're the only ones. And when you can be with a community of people in any format, and I wanted, before I forget this, you and I were talking earlier today, if there's anybody who's watching this video who would like us to start a group, a support group at Pillars of Light and Love that would be online, because all of our groups are online right now, that Lee, who's a life coach, who has an addiction, who needs that help, and, you don't have to comment below, but send me a private message and say, hey, I'd be interested, because we'll start it with, 2-3 people, Lee, if you're willing to do that, once a month to help people, because somebody has to, it's so comforting when people say, I understand. I've been there, and here's me now. And if you remember from one of the classes I taught on stress management, I say we're all WIPs, WIP. We are all works in progress. Like, you may have found your peace right away, but every day, like you said, you have to work at it. Every day, you may think, people may think I have it all together. I have constant conversations with the committee in my head. That's what I call them. The voices. And I was like, okay, why did that just happen? Well, why am I feeling this way? Well, what should I do about it? Okay, I'm frustrated. Let me feel the feeling. Let me breathe. Okay, I'm just going to let it go out the window, and I'm going to pull down the shade. Like, that's what I do mentally. I have to let that thought go out the window, and I pull down the shade. And that's something I learned in a group that we have called Stress Less for Women at our center. But that's, we have open dialogue and we talk about things that work. And I'm like, I like that. It's a visual. I can do it. I let that frustration fly up out of my head and go out the window. That's a coping skill, right? So
yeah, and you're describing a good chunk of recovery. I mean, this is what we learn in recovery, is how to handle things, how to let things go, how to not ruminate and dwell. And if we spend too much time thinking about negative things, they grow legs and arms and heads and become a life of their own. And so we learn how to, we learn how to cope better. I love what you said about, people, we need to, so in recovery, oftentimes it's said that only one alcoholic can help another alcoholic. I can, if I've never been touched by alcoholism, never drank, never had a problem with it, and I try to approach an alcoholic and tell them how to live their life, they're not going to listen to me because I don't understand. So what's fascinating about this program and about my life today is that the very thing that made me want to end my life is my equity today. So what I have, it's my equity. What I have to give today is that life that I wanted to throw away, because it's me too. I can sit across from another woman and say, me too. I did that too. I felt that too. This is how I drank. And guess what? You're going to be okay. You can do this. If I can do this, I drank every single day of my life almost till I was 48 years old. I am sober today. I haven't picked up a drink or a drug or any mind altering substance.
Does that mean you're in your 50s? Are you in your 50s? Because you do not.
I'm 56.
I'll be the heck out of here. You're I mean, I just turned 60, and I thought for sure you were in your 40s. For sure.
Bless you. I'll come on the show anytime you want. Every day we'll talk about how young I look. When you cut alcohol, when you live well and you live happy and you live peacefully, it took, I think I took 15 years off my face when I stopped drinking, and I live healthy today. I'm all about healthy living. I eat well, I exercise. Today, I don't want to die. Today, I want to live. But being able to share with another person, that I've been through all this too, is what makes my life worthwhile today. My purpose in life. I was walking around aimlessly, purposelessly for years and years and years. And now my purpose today is to help women that want to get sober. And I probably work with 4 or 5 women a week. I spend hours and hours of my time helping people walk through the program of recovery.
In addition to your full-time job.
In addition to my full-time job, and I don't do it during the day because I live ethically today as well. But yeah, no, I do it after hours. I do it early. This morning I was on a call early. I do it on the weekends, and I do it because I want to freely give back to those people who need it. What was freely given to me. And when I walked into the rooms of the program that I go to, people embraced me. They welcomed me. They made me feel at home, and they spent lots of phone calls, me crying, saying I couldn't do it. And here I am. I have a woman mentor sponsor that still, that I still talk to several times a week. And
And it's still for everybody listening, this story and every story that we're going to bring on to tell your story, the story, again, the things that you're saying, it's alcoholism is one thing, but as I said, people have everybody has something, something. Even the most together people, I have spoken to major CEOs of corporations who have confided in me of the stuff that they suffer in silence about, and it blows my mind. Like anything that you're saying about seeking out people who understand, seeking out the help, seeking out the support, it's out there. And for anybody listening, like, reach out to me. I know a lot of people. Like, I know people who can help people. So you just tell me what's going on and I can direct you and guide you, because I just have so many resources through Pillars of Light and Love. And so the things that you're saying about, it's just, but I want to go back to, how do you make the choice, Lee? Like, how did you make the choice to know this was not working for me and I have to do something about it? I don't want to be like this anymore. How did you get there? Because people say alcoholism is a disease. People say alcoholism is a choice. Now, I believe it's a disease. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the choice is every single day when you have those conversations in your head. I have had a bad day. Oh, I wish I could have a drink. No, I won't. My mom gave up smoking the minute she had a heart attack at 53. And, when she was 79 and 70 and 65, she goes, we would have problems. She goes, damn, I wish I could have a cigarette right now. But she didn't. But she still wanted it. So it's anything, depression, anxiety, alcoholism, it is constant work to stay away. But what was it that do you have to get so low before
well,
you'll reach your hand up? Like, does everybody
yeah,
have to go that low, or can you just at any time, do you see people just say, this isn't working, I don't like
yeah,
myself?
rarely, rarely, but it's yeah. And I just want to say too that it's not that hard. No, it's not. Yes, I remain constantly vigilant because alcoholism is a disease that I am not cured of. What I'm cured of today is the need to pick up a drink or a drug to get through my life. But the disease still lingers. What I've replaced it with is a spiritual program of recovery. I've replaced it with so many different things, tools, a relationship with a higher power, with other people. There's so many things that it's not that difficult. It's yeah. Does my brain go to a drink if I'm feeling stressed? Sometimes, yeah. But I'm also smart enough to know today where that's going to lead me if I pick one up. So so I just want to make it clear that it's not that hard. It might be hard at first, the first bunch of time. It's but after a while, life is so much better that it's highly unlikely that I'm ever going to go back and pick up another drink unless I stop doing the things every single day that I do to keep myself in a good place. So that I just wanted to correct that for people that think it's like white knuckling it for the rest of your life. No, you're not. You're going to be so amazed at how wonderful life can be. And it's a high that we used to chase all the time and never were able to find that I feel today. Like I love life. I love this. I love connecting with people. But
And
what
it's
is it that gave me the power to make that choice? You know, I think in some ways it was a divine thing. I mean, I did pre-plan the 30-day cleanse. I had zero intention of keeping this going any longer than 30 days. I had the loving conversation, which got me into the rooms of recovery. And it was in there that I started hearing my stories. This is why it's important not to do this on our own. So in these rooms, I heard story after story after story after story that sounded exactly like me. I started reading the literature and I started to understand the disease nature of this thing. And once I started to understand exactly what this is all about, I realized I had to buckle down and do the work, the recovery work, or I was probably going to drink again. And if I drink again, I'm probably going to die. If not at my own hand, I'm going to wreck my car, or God forbid, I kill somebody else. I mean, so I understand today that I'm powerless over alcohol. When I start to drink, I don't stop, and I make bad decisions, and I go to a very, very dark place. So because of that, I do what I need to do every day to keep it at bay. And, I'm motivated to come back and help other women. So I think it was a moment of grace, to be honest, that made me realize, but it was also people being there for me, and people, me being open-minded enough to hear my story over and over and realize, oh, I'm in the right place. um, I just was willing to listen. I was willing to stop taking charge of myself and my life, and willing to open my mind and my ears to what other people had to say, suggest. And then I started looking around, and there were people, and it's not like a bunch of people miserable. These were happy people living great lives, driving nice cars with nice jobs and nice, partnerships. And I wanted that. I wanted what they had. I wanted to live out in the open, out loud, successfully, the way that they were doing. And so if that's what I wanted, then I needed to stop doing it my way and start listening to what they had to say. And that's basically what happened. I don't know. A lot of people have to hit bottom. Change is or pain is the touchstone to all change. As long as alcohol and drugs are working, as long as they're working to settle down that anxiety and that feeling less than, and that feeling of not belonging that we have, it's hard to give it up. So while others might look at somebody who's drinking heavily and go, wow, this person is just a mess and their life is falling apart and they're about to lose their job, and the family's worrying about losing the house or whatever is going on, while everybody around them sees the nightmare, the person feels like it's fine. So oftentimes until somebody loses something or has fear of losing something, they're not necessarily going to make a change. It's a disease of self-diagnosis, unfortunately. This alcohol, never have I, in 8.5 years of working with women, have I told them they're an alcoholic. That's a admission and a statement that needs to come from the deep recesses of our own selves. Because until we get there, we're not going to do any of the work and we're not going to make the changes. So for those people who do have families, I highly recommend getting with a program. I think your community has one, Kathy, for families of addicts and alcoholics.
Yep, we have one called Loving Someone with an Addiction. It's a monthly program with one of our therapists. And, it's tough. It's tough because you want them to change. And until they're ready, they're not going to do it, or until they get so low, and you want to pull them along. And that's got to be one of the most frustrating things, to live with somebody like that. It definitely, you feel helpless.
It's devastating. And it is a family disease. It's a community disease. So if there's one alcoholic, there are a bunch of people around them that are suffering, and probably not acting great all the time and feeling just as sick as the alcoholic is. So very seriously, suggest anyone that's being touched by an alcoholic or an addict that they get to a recovery program. Al-Anon, Alateen, there are all kinds of programs out there. And what will happen is you'll start to find that peace and serenity, regardless of whether the person is drinking or not. And then you can make, proper choices for yourself. And never is a recovery program going to tell you to leave the person. So anyway, yeah, recovery is wonderful, and it's available to everybody, regardless of what the issue is.
And the programs are everywhere. I can't see the comments. Can you look at your other screen and see? And anybody who has any questions for Lee, anyone making any comments on our live stream?
Hi, Linda. Linda says, thank you for sharing. Linda, a mutual friend of ours.
Okay.
I don't see a lot of questions. I think people, I'll tell you, I do this a lot, and people tend to just sit and listen and absorb and
take it in. And again, message me. I do see my messages. I've got like 5 messages, so I don't know if people are interested in possibly doing a group. I wanted to talk about one more thing. When we said, some people say alcoholism is a disease, and people say, well, it's a choice. But I believe it's a mental illness. And you described for me something earlier that said that alcoholics have a flaw in their thinking. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I am not an infectious disease doctor. However, in this recovery program that I participate in, we believe it's a disease of the mind.
So a mental illness doctor, yeah.
And a disease of the body. So it's a twofold disease. The flaw in our thinking is that, and not everybody, you know, people that are normal drinkers don't have this flaw in their thinking, but the very part of your brain that tells you not to put your hand on a hot stove when you do so, and you get burnt. So you put your hand on a hot stove, you get burnt, you never do it again. You probably check to make sure it's not on even next time you get near it. That chip is missing in an alcoholic's brain. So when an alcoholic drinks, they often drink to excess. There are often consequences, either external or internal, DUIs, fights with the family, getting fired from jobs, you know, whatever all those consequences are. Sometimes they're drastic and sometimes they're not, but the internal consequences are always the same, which is, you know, shame, remorse, isolation, fear, devastation, all those things. It's a dark place alcoholics get to. Even though we feel that way, and even though bad things happen, like we drive cars drunk, you know, whatever all the stuff is, the brain doesn't go, hey, you know, last time you drank too much, you made a fool out of yourself at the company party. Maybe you shouldn't drink this time. The brain just doesn't work that way. In fact, the brain does the opposite. It says, you know what, you'll be fine. This time it'll be different. Why don't you just try drinking one this time? It'll be all right. No worries. That is the mental, that's the defective part of the brain. There's nothing that deters you from taking that last drink, even when the experience over and over and over again says that this is not going to end well. So we've got that part going. And then we have what we call the allergy of the body, which is manifested by the phenomenon of craving, or in the phenomenon of craving. And that is when an alcoholic takes one drink, it's highly unlikely that they're going to stop at one. There's something triggered. This phenomenon of craving is triggered in the body, and the alcoholic just keeps drinking. And they'll drink one, they'll drink two, they'll drink three. Sometimes they'll stop at three. They might drink six, they might drink 10. You know, this is one of the things that will keep alcoholics drinking for a long time, because they'll go, well, the other night I was able to drink two. And that's great, but most nights, probably not. And some alcoholics are not every night drinkers. Some alcoholics are binge drinkers. It's important to understand that alcoholism looks different for everybody on the outside. So some people may only drink on a weekend, or they might only drink once a year, but when they drink too much. They can't stop. They can't control it.
And is it drinking to get lost, to lose your inhibitions? Like what is the feeling that you strive for when you drink? I'm not a drinker. If I have one chocolate martini, like, you know, every 3 or 4 months, if I'm out, like, I don't like the feeling of losing control. I was drunk one time when I was like 20 something. And I never wanted that feeling of losing control again, and the bed spins and all. Like, I never wanted that. So do people who drink want that loss of feeling, like, oh, I don't care? Like, what is it that you look for? Like, you get to? What is the escape?
Different. Alcoholics drink for the effect that alcohol produces. Most normal drinkers will do what you're talking about. They might have one or two. You'll hear non-alcoholics say things like, oh, you know, I can't have another one because I have to go to work tomorrow, or, oh, can't have one because I'm on medication, or, oh, can't have one because I have a headache. Alcoholics don't care. Like, every situation is an excuse to keep drinking. But we drink for the effect it produces. We drink to get drunk. Some people drink to oblivion. I drank, I wanted to just drink. I wanted, you know, it's funny because I don't really think about drinking very often, but when I do think about drinking, if I think, you know, what would drinking be like for me today, I envision a big, huge glass of ice cold white wine and chugging it. So that's not normal. You know, that's like, I can almost feel it, you know, absorbing into every cell in my body. That is abnormal drinking. So alcoholics tend to drink for effect. We want to get drunk. And the problem is we don't have an off switch. There's no such thing as moderation. There's no such thing as just having one or two. If there is, it's a rare event. And the consequences, you know, like I said, they're dire. They can be deadly. At best, relationships are ruined. At best, kids can't rely on their parents. You know, at best, you're not a reliable employee. You know, you're not a reliable friend. You're not a contributor to society. You're not engaged with the God of your understanding. I mean, alcoholism, drug addiction, and any other addiction cuts us off from the sunlight of the spirit, cuts us off from connection to everybody. And that's what we want. although we wouldn't say it that way, but at some level we're not comfortable engaging with all that stuff, and so we're just trying to turn it off. And then of course the guilt and the remorse and all that stuff creeps up, and the only thing that's going to make that go away is another drink. So it's kind of a vicious cycle.
And
um,
you'll stay there until you until you get to a point where you say this is not working
enough.
for me,
It's not working
and
anymore.
enough is enough, and I'm worthy of something better. But you can't even see better. Like, you don't even know. Like you said, I had no idea what my life could be, and it's so much better than I even thought it could be. Like, you don't even know until you take that chance. So
Yeah, and I'm worth more is not going to enter into most alcoholics' thinking. In fact, it's the very opposite. We feel worthless, we feel undeserving, we feel unlovable. And that's one of the beautiful things about stepping into a room of recovery, is that for the first time in your life, you feel enough, you feel welcomed, you feel loved. And just that gives you enough to keep coming back and doing the rest of the work. And so the disease, is it a disease or is it a choice? We feel like it's a disease. We feel like it's a disease of the mind and body. It's a disease that renders somebody almost, it renders it almost impossible to make a decision to just put the drink down. So something has to happen to create just a little bit of space. A lot of people go to detox and rehab, and I'm a huge believer of it if that's what you need to do. Some people absolutely cannot stop drinking unless they have some kind of medical intervention. There are medical interventions besides hospitalization. There are pills people can take to stave off the craving. There are pills people can take to take away the effects that it has. I mean, there are pills people can take to make you sick when you drink. So there are medical interventions, and some people just aren't going to be able to get sober without those. But not everyone has to go to rehab. That's my story. I didn't go. I wish I had. It would have been a lot easier, I think. But I find it less than useful to get into too much of a debate about whether it's a choice, and whether it's a willpower thing or whether it's a disease. For people that feel like they're struggling out there, even the name "I'm an alcoholic" can wait until later. It's just, if alcohol isn't working, if it's creating problems in someone's life, it's a problem and it needs to be looked into. I do a lot of wellness coaching and a lot of teaching too, just like you do, Kathy. And I teach personal responsibility. If you're unhappy and your life isn't working, it's your responsibility to reach out and grab help. If I'm a woman in the community and I see someone struggling, it is my responsibility to say, hey, I see you're struggling. Can I help? I just can't be attached to the outcome, because most alcoholics are not going to take you up on the offer for help until they're good and ready to do so. But I am, I'm anonymous today with regard to the name of the program of recovery that I participate in, because that's part of our tradition. But I am not anonymous about my recovery. I'm pretty out loud about it on Facebook. And the reason I do that is because I want people to feel comfortable reaching out to me for help. If I can help one person not have to live like that, we don't have to live like that. The thing is, sobriety is the easier, gentler way. It really is. Learning coping skills, learning connection skills, learning how to find a higher power that you can connect to, that helps guide your life is easier than all the drama and nonsense. I mean, the amount of willpower and mind power that went into keeping me drinking. I say if I had stopped drinking at 21, I'd probably be running the country today. My career skyrocketed in 8.5 years. And that's another story for another day. But
but what you said before, and I think that's what I want people who are struggling with anything. You said now you have the natural high, and it's all the time. Like, you're in a state of natural high where when you drink, you have that temporary. It's the temporary feel good. When it's drugs, it's temporary. It's a temporary solution. But once you get into recovery and once you get to peace within your soul, within yourself, in anywhere in your life, like people who are overthinkers, people who are worriers, who are now we're going to call it wondering, people who are in a state of anxiety and worry and overthinking, and if it's compounded by alcohol or drugs, there is another way. there is another way to live that you can't see. And all we're saying is that I'm saying, and you're saying, Lee, is reach out. And there used to be a song like back, so you're almost my age. So back, remember that reach out and touch somebody's hand,
Yeah.
reach out and touch, I want to sing that, but it's kind of like, I feel like just reach up. Like we'll find you, like somebody will find you. Look for the helpers. Like they're out there in every community. They're everywhere. And you don't even have to go far. You can just go online. You can come to Pillars of Peace. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Lee. Like we're here to help guide you as to where you can go to get the assistance, to get into that state that you don't even believe right now that you could ever be in, a better state of mind through anything that you're going through. There is hope. There is another way, and we're here to do that. So we're over our hour time,
Uh-oh.
as I
I was
knew
just
would.
going to say, get online, reach out to Kathy, but also get online, and just a simple Google search will hook you up with any number of hotlines that can get you connected to meetings. Right now, most of the recovery programs that I know about have online Zoom meetings, so you can Zoom right in, and around the whole country, around the world. I mean, there are meetings, you could probably go to 50 meetings a day if you wanted to. I don't know how you would accomplish that, but yeah, I
But
do
they're out
think
there. The help is there.
the help is there, and it's easier now to get to than ever. And people want to help you. I mean, we who are in recovery want to help you because we stay sober when we help people. So it's not ever a burden. It's something that we want to do. And like you said, yes, life is wonderful. I don't feel like I'm always on a permanent high. I don't want to mislead anyone into thinking that I'm, perfectly zen all the time. But
Yeah.
I look at life like an adventure today. Today it's an adventure. And some days the adventure is beautiful with sunsets and hummingbirds and beauty and peace and joy. And other days, it's a little scarier, but it's all part of it. It's like I was talking to somebody the other day about if you look at the woods, there's dark and there's light, and the dark and the light against each other and with each other create this beautiful 3D deep woods effect of beauty. And that's what life is about. We have dark and we have light, and what we learn in recovery and in therapy and in all the different methodologies of recovery out there is how to roll with all of it, and how to learn to appreciate it and be grateful for life rather than wishing for it to end.
Before we go, can you share one thing that is like your go-to, one thing that you do to maintain peace? Do you have a routine? Do you have stuff that you do every day?
I
Like
do. I do
what is it
actually.
that you do?
So I do a morning routine. I get up, I get my coffee, and I journal. So in my journaling, I do something called inspired writing, but essentially what I do is I journal, I write my gratitude. So I first, and I write to my higher power. You don't need to do this. You can write to anybody you want, or you can not write at all. You can do whatever you want. But I write my journal, I write about my gratitude, and then I actually throw up all over the page. I write everything that I have felt angst about or good about or anything over the last 24 hours. So I try to keep my slate clean 24 hours at a time. And this is actually part of the recovery program. So I write about it. I ask for intercession for other people. Lately, I see a lot of suffering, so I write about that. I just write about ways that I can become a better person. I try to get to the bottom of things. You were talking about this earlier. If something's bothering me, I try to think about why that is and what it's touching in me. And often, and so part of my routine is if I think I need to tell somebody something, I'll pick up the phone and call somebody, one of my trusted friends, and just share whatever I'm being burdened with. I try to get exercise every day. There's a really great book just for everybody that isn't recovery related, but it's a great morning routine called The Miracle Morning. And it's a really great way to get started, but some affirmations, some visualization. I find that it centers me. I ask that I be given the tools to help others today, that I be given the tools to be the best person I can be today, that I remember to walk in gratitude because I've been given so much. I mean, I shouldn't be walking around sober today. There's no reason why the person that was laying on the couch and passed out blackout every night is sober today, living the life she's living. So I try to remember to walk in gratitude. And when I center myself that way in the morning, everything just kind of flows better. And I just remember to be a better person. And I'm more focused on giving rather than what I'm not getting. If I start
Beautiful.
focusing on what I'm not
Beautiful.
getting, it's
That's a
not
lot of
good.
work. You didn't get there quickly. That's a lot of work to
Oh
get where you
no,
got.
listen, I go after this like my life depends on it because it does. It
Hmm.
does.
That's a great
And,
ending statement to have, and I love that. We're getting I am able to see on the phone, and we have people and saying this topic hits close to home in their family, and appreciating you for sharing your story as I do. And I hope that maybe we can do some work together, and people will reach out and and get a group going. Like we said, we have a group for families of loved ones with addictions, but to get a group of just people who can come together and in addition to getting their help wherever they need it in a 12-step program, but just to come together and say, I get you, and maybe you share things like, how about the take home is you do journaling, and I journal, and I love to go back and read things from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, things I never thought I could get through, and I was like, wow, I was like really bummed, I was really down in the dumps, and
yeah,
look what happened, and I didn't know it. And my mom used to say, in the book of life, when you don't understand what's happening, just fold the page over and we'll come back to it someday and it'll make more sense. But she used to always say, just fold the page, Kathy. Just fold the
that's
page.
wonderful.
And come back later. It doesn't make sense now, but there something's happening. Like we say, everything's happening for a reason. Her thing was, in your book of life, fold the page. So I want to
Thank
thank you so very much for
you. My
being
gosh.
public and sharing your story, and I am so grateful for you for doing that, and I am very grateful for those who are in the Pillars of Peace group, and this is what we're all about, helping one another. I think that you and I are probably going to do some good work together in the future, and I appreciate that so very
I,
much.
I have enjoyed, I found you. I think I told you this, but I know you through work related stuff. And I think we became friends on Facebook, and I was trolling around and I found your stuff and I was just like, I need to know this lady. And I have just enjoyed the times we've been able to collaborate together. You're a very special person, and what you're doing with this pillars of light and pillars of peace community, these communities is just amazing. And I just have so much respect for you, and really am grateful that you're doing this, because it takes people like you to step up and do this stuff, you know, or
Thank
nothing
you.
gets done. So good for
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for
And
having
guess
me.
what? And guess what? The minute I met you, I knew that you were a pillar of light and love. I knew
Thank
it. I'm
you.
like, there's another pillar. Like I can call people out now. Like I know. I'm like, I know that if I called you and said, would you do this? You would say yes, because you are one of those people who wants to give back, and you're
Yeah,
grateful for what you have. So I
yeah.
don't see any
Thank
other.
you.
Do you see
I
any?
don't see any other either. I've been
Okay.
trying to sort of find where all these
Them
things
both.
are.
But we're going to be monitoring the stream, so anybody who wants to put a question up, this will stay up live. It will be recorded. I forgot to hit record for the Zoom, so I know it will stay up and I'll be able to download it off the computer. But Lee, thank you so very much for sharing your story. And everybody, tune in next week. I will post the date and time. It just depends on the speaker schedule on what day we'll be on. But I'm going to try to do this every week. I am committed to creating more peace inside each and every person, no matter what is happening in your life, and to bring you people who have learned and lived it, and they understand, and maybe it touches and resonates with you in your life. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you again, Lee, and good night. I'll see
Thank
you
you. Love
again
you
next
guys.
time. All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye bye now.